Big show today as we are on the eve of Chargers football being back on our TV screen. That's right, Chargers big preseason game against the Texans tomorrow. We're going to talk about what practice looked like so far this week. What can we expect in a very light, brief preview? Full preview is going to be out tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about this rumor that I heard put on Pardon My Take, but I've also heard it on a couple of other different spots. That is a good breakdown that we're going to need to have. Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I am your host, Will Ortner, and the Chargers defense looked dominant yesterday, but really has looked good this entire week of practice. And I think that is a really good thing for defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary and his confidence, as well as the confidence in the defensive players that are going to be a part of this roster. Look, when you have a person that has the skill set that Jesse Minter has and they leave, there is going to be at least a little bit of doubt, whether you think it's a good hire or not, that the new guy coming in to replace him is going to be just as good, right? That is human nature. The old saying was you never want to be the guy after the guy. You don't want to be the guy that gets hired at Alabama after Nick Saban because you get compared to that guy too much. Well, there's still an opportunity here, I think, for Chris O'Leary, one, to hit the ground running. Seems like he's done that. And show that he is just as talented as Jesse Minter as a defensive play caller. And he can create a defense that is as good or maybe even better, just depending on how he wants to call certain plays and how he wants to develop his personnel grouping. Will the Chargers defense be as good as it was last year? Let us know down below in the comment section. Now, a lot of people are going to say that it was the Seahawks defense and it was the Texans defense, and you can throw the Broncos defense in there as well. Not enough people were talking about that Chargers defense because it was really stinking good as well. Really, last year, it was Justin Herbert and it was the Jesse Minter defense. And that's what got this team into the postseason. With all the injuries they had, they shouldn't have been in the postseason. So can you have a defense that doesn't have to take a step back? Because I really think this offense is taking 1 to 2 steps forward. Let us know, yes or no. So the big days came for Teair Tart and Donte Jackson. Both of these veteran players ended up having big plays where Tart, it was a couple of different potential sacks. Obviously can't end up hitting the QB. And then Donte Jackson, he ended up having a couple of big knockdowns as well as forcing a interception for the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a really good thing because you're not just seeing one unit have success. I think sometimes we'll see different reports where it's like, the defense dominated. And then you go in and you read and it's like, well, 3 players had a bunch of sacks on the defensive line. So yeah, of course the defense dominated because you had 2 edge rushers that got in the backfield a bunch. Where when you see, hey, the D-line's doing well as the secondary, I think that shows a completeness to your defense that is a big deal. Akeem Mesidor also had a really good day, and I think that is very important for this Chargers team. He was showing that he could win in pass rush one-on-one reps while also winning in some team sessions as well. 1, it shows that you made the right choice in selecting Mesidor, but 2, it shows that he is having success in this Chris O'Leary defense, and it's not easy to pick it up right away. Not that the O'Leary defense is incredibly complicated compared to Minter's defense, it's just it's a new defense. You're learning a completely different language. It'd be like me going to you and saying, hey, how's your first 2 weeks of learning Spanish? Probably not the easiest if you've never taken Spanish before. This linebacker depth chart, they've done very well. You've seen success from some of the younger players as well as some of the older players as well. And I think that one points to where this defense is at already, which is a really good sign, but it also points to where this defense can continue to grow as some of these younger players continue to progress. To me, this is a really strong group, and I think that you are going to continue to see a lot of big plays be made by this crew. I want to touch lastly on the left guard rotation because while the defense might have dominated, I still think that there was a lot of success that was had from the offense, especially at this left guard position between Slaughter, Taylor, and Awosika. They were all rotating through, and it's clear to me that there is a single player in that left guard position rotation right now who has not only just had the best day yesterday, but he probably had the best week and is clearly putting himself in a position where I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up winning that battle. Who's it going to be? I'll let you know just in 1 second. But first, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. With the football season right around the corner, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at Prize Picks. And I'll tell you this, the app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few players' stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Price Picks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. One thing I love is the new social feeds feature, where you can share Price Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at BigWill7774 to see all of my lineups. I have a lineup for the football action going on later on this week. Joe Burrow, less on his pass yards. Cameron Dicker, more on his PATs made. DJ Uiagalelei, more on his pass yards. New user offer. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right. Prize Picks just switched up their offers, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 plus lineup. Jake Slaughter, to me, is the one who's had the best week. We had some complaints on this channel. Hand up. I apologize. I had a couple of different takes early on where I said it felt like he wasn't in a position to where he could win this job. It felt like he was getting kind of moved out as being viewed as someone who could take over the spot. Now, McDaniel's made it very clear that all 5 guys who have taken reps at that left guard position have an opportunity to win that spot, but it does feel like with the rotations that we're seeing, that's really down to 3 guys, with 2 guys looking on the outside in, and those 3 guys we showed you on the screen. It was Slaughter, it was Awosika, and it was Taylor. I believe that Slaughter, with how well he's been playing, opening up holes in that offensive run game, still a little bit weak in the pass pro, something he's got to continue to improve upon, but that makes sense. Centers are usually weakest at pass pro because they go against the worst pass rushers at that nose guard position. I think that he's putting himself into a spot where we're going to talk about him potentially having that number 1 left guard position. Jake Slaughter has gotten better every single week, and this was a big week for him to firmly cement himself into a position where he could get this job. Now, let's go to an early preview. It's going to be quick. It's going to be kind of a hammering through. Make sure that you come back tomorrow. We're going to have a preview that goes out probably earlier in the morning, West Coast time, so that way you are fully prepared for that Chargers preseason game against the Texans. Initially, my first thing is don't expect to see a lot of starters play for either team. Both coaches have made it very clear, hey, there's going to be a handful of select guys that because they're in position battles or maybe they're younger, they're going to be seen in game action. But for the most part, I do expect to see a lot of true blue starters on the sideline with a hat, maybe with their pads still on, but with a hat on because they know they're not going to need their helmet. This is going to be a football game that you're fired up about. This is going to be a football game that you can't wait to see on your TV screen. And then you're going to see a lot of plays where you're like, what the heck is that guy doing? Why did the left guard go right when the entire rest of the offensive line went left? Why is that guy skiing behind the receiver that burned him on a deep route? These are things that are going to happen. It's going to be sloppy. There's a reason why you have preseason. One, because you're going to see a lot of guys that will never really make an NFL roster getting time, especially in the 3rd and 4th quarter. But you're also going to see guys that are still learning the system, trying to learn how to play with their teammates, trying to figure out where they fit in on a team. So expect sloppy play, and don't let that be a big freak out for you. Yeah, we might have a little bit of hyperbole on maybe Friday or maybe on Saturday after the fact with the game of like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen with this player? What's going to happen with that player? I think we have to remind ourselves now and try to remind ourselves in the moment after the fact that it's still early. This is the preseason. Expect it to be a little sloppy. Watch the young players. I'm excited to see what the young guys do. There's a couple of guys that we will point out to you in tomorrow's video that I'm really going to have my eye on of how does this guy perform in this situation? How does that guy perform in that situation? I want to see what the young guys are going to be able to do to add to this roster. This is a team that made it to the postseason last year, despite a significant amount of injuries. I believe that this is a team that can win the Super Bowl. But to do that, the young players have to play up to their potential, and guys have to find a way to stay healthy. I want to watch the young players because if you have an opportunity and you're Akeem Mesidor, you're Brennan Thompson, Genesis Smith, and Jake Slaughter to really go in and show out, that could be a big deal when it comes to how much play time you're getting during the regular season. Which Chargers player are you most excited to see play tomorrow? Let us know down below in our comment section. Very interested to hear what you have to say there. Last, let's talk about J.J. McCarthy because I find his case study very interesting. If you are paying attention to Minnesota Vikings football, you're going to know that J.J. McCarthy just got beat out for the starting quarterback position in Minnesota. McCarthy was someone that was drafted very high by the Vikings. They brought in Kyler Murray this offseason, and Kyler Murray ended up winning that job. And then that has made a lot of people think, could the Vikings trade McCarthy? At this point, it feels like there's no reason for them to go back to him. It feels like the best case scenario for this relationship is the organization and the player to move on. So that means that there are trade rumors around McCarthy. And a big rumor is that McCarthy could end up in Los Angeles. Now, this is not a situation where it would be McCarthy coming to the Chargers to replace Justin Herbert. This would be a situation where it would be McCarthy rejoining Coach Harbaugh, who was obviously his coach when they were both at Michigan and they won a national championship together. McCarthy had a lot of success with Jim Harbaugh. But I think that this is important to kind of realize and to talk about here when it comes to a trade. If the Chargers were to trade for him, it's probably going to be a day 3 pick, and he would come in and be the number 2 on this Chargers depth chart, whether it was DJ Uiagalelei that he beat out, Trey Lance, or maybe both of them. That's kind of the idea behind this theory. The problem is that if I'm J.J. McCarthy, I'm not at an age right now where I want to be willing to be a backup. I would want to be sent somewhere where I have an opportunity to go be a starter either this year in a bridge situation or next year. But more importantly to me, it doesn't make sense to give up a bunch of capital for a guy that there's no world where he's ever going to be the number 1. Justin Herbert is very clearly the number 1 guy in Los Angeles. Just because Harbaugh and McCarthy have a very good relationship and have won a lot of football games together doesn't mean that the Chargers should go and make a move to go and get McCarthy. I think that this is a lazy rhetoric by a lot of other sports media personalities where they just go, Harbaugh, McCarthy, pictures together. I see them together. Why not make a trade and a move there? This doesn't make sense to me. I don't see it happening, but I thought it was important enough to talk about it on the show. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Why? Because if you do, you'll be here for our watch party. By the way, we're closing in on 6K subs, which is very cool. Could we do it during the watch party on Thursday? That'd make me very excited. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Can't wait to see you guys next time. And as always, bolt the freak up.